Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be back with another Young Indian, part of the Voice of the Young series. Right now, we have with us Lakhi Tiwari. Let's listen to her. Over to you, Lakhi.
Yeah, so hello everyone. This is Lakhi this side. So I'm currently in my second year in economics honors at Hindu College, University of Delhi, and I have had various interests related to policy making, be it like at macro level as well as micro level, and it is policy making which I have observed in through competitions and also in my study with how the things have changed throughout the years. So I like it's a great opportunity for me to speaking to a person who has worked in the same field and so, sir, I would like to ask you about how you have worked in different areas. Like I saw your profile, you have worked in various areas, like at World Bank and then in in the academia as well. And now you're working as an independent consultant. So how has your trajectory been, and how have you liked it?
Okay, I'll be very short. It has been a great journey.
Yeah,
It suits my personality. Not everybody has, I'm a little bit outside the norm, little bit, not too much, little bit. So I like to have change in my work and in change in what I do. And the final change is the creation of this channel. There's no channel like this. This is not what economists do, right? But I've
yeah,
done it because I always like to do something new, something creative, something different. Not I like to, that is the impulse in me. It has been
mm-hmm.
there for a very long time, right from class 9, to do something different, to do something creative, to do something different, and not to be in a straight line, just to
Yeah,
have change now and then. But at the same time, you work hard, you study hard, and you deliver the results to the people you are currently working for. But I'll just give
yeah,
you an example of how you can be in two places at the same time. Actually, in the early 1990s, I was a consultant for the US Postal Service.
okay,
And the World Bank asked me to develop a solar rural electrification program in Indonesia. There's no connection
okay,
between the two.
yeah,
I knew actually nothing about what the details of the postal service are or anything about solar in Indonesia. It was the first program at all of the type that the World Bank would do later. There was no template, nothing. But think from first principles, think it through, make it work.
yeah,
So that has been, and the creation of this channel, it's not a copy of anything, it's unique. And how that can happen is if you keep your mind open to the new opportunities. I mean, 10 years ago, we couldn't have had this channel because nobody had Zoom, nobody had video. But now,
yeah,
thanks to the pandemic, we have the video. Everybody's got a smartphone. Everybody knows what it means to be online. New opportunities open, take advantage. So that's
yeah.
how it has
That
been
is
for me. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so like one more thing, like as in like right now I'm at DU and like I just saw your profile and like you have been also a part of the same campus. Like you were in the college just right in front of me, like literally like you were I'm at Hindu College and you were a student at this St. Stephen's. So how was your journey in like at college level? And I believe like there is a huge difference in what kind of college life you experienced and the way we are experiencing it. Like we have a lot I believe that given the pressure and everything, we have a lot of things like, for example, like in college itself, we have societies, we have department and a lot of stuff going on all the time. And how was it different? And how was it at your time? And how do you think is it different? And how was it basically?
Okay. Well, first of all, India was a poor country at that time,
Yeah.
where certainly compared to what it is now. So the first big difference was that there was no money and there were no facilities. The whole college had one phone for use by everybody, and it didn't work half the time. So we were basically, and there nobody had, none of the students had a TV in the college, and mostly people didn't have at home either. So there was no TV, there was no phone, there was no radio in our homes. So we were basically living just with each other. We were isolated from the whole world. And you read newspapers. Yes, the college library had newspapers. You could read them. But there was no money really to have societies and spend. The colleges didn't have the money that they give you. Okay, you can do this in the society. Here it is. Yeah, we had debating and we had one stage play a year. But other than that, there weren't really any activities. I mean, yes, sports. You
Yeah.
could play sports, and it was table tennis, cricket, all these things were there, but not too many of them, just two or three things that you had. And so most of the time was actually today people do internships and people do so many other things. There were no internships,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
So basically, we just, let me tell you honestly, had a good time. We were, at when we started our second year, I think for one semester we played bridge every night till 4 in the morning. Just wasted our lives because bridge is cheap, you have cards, you don't need any money. You can just play all night and
Yeah.
skip your classes, go to classes, you know. They was they were not so hard. You could do
Yeah, I get
well
you.
without studying all the time. And so it was like do this, do that, but it wasn't productive.
Yeah.
It was all low level consumption.
Got
Maybe at
got
night, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, you can go and have a little chai at a dhaba. Okay. But that's
Yeah.
because you can't afford more than a little chai. You can't go to a restaurant or some fancy place. There's no money. So you just go and sit in the dhaba and you have your tea till 1 in the morning, come back, chat, and waste your time. And still, I mean, look, I didn't even take as a lazy guy, so I didn't even take maths as the subsidiary or minor, as you call it, in college.
Okay.
I said, oh, who's going to work that hard? Let me just take history. I can just study it at the end. So I didn't take even maths. It was like but I got good marks. That was,
Yeah.
subjects were not that hard. You could
Yeah.
do it.
So yeah, so sir, as you mentioned about maths, and like one thing which I'm just reminded of, that like when I was in my class 12th and I did my I opted for economics. So at that time I had maths as one of my subjects, and in college I opted for economics honors. But when I came to study over here, I just realized that economics has more of maths than economics in it, like basically at the graduation level as of now. But what I got to know that earlier economics was very less quantitative as as it is now. So how do you think the change has been, and what kind of, for example, like as you mentioned, you didn't take maths for the optional minor, and what, but right now for compulsory, like right now in my till in my I'm in my third semester, but still, like for the last three semesters we have had maths as a compulsory core paper. And like so the reason is basically that yes, economics has become more quantitative in the last few years, and which is justified. So how do you think this transition in economics has been, and how it is going to be further?
Well, the thing is that economics was already quantitative at that time. Okay.
Yeah.
Economics was quantitative way back, but
Yeah.
our syllabus was not quantitative.
Hmm.
So we were lagging behind. The teaching in the BA was not quantitative at all. I mean, yes, we had graphs, but there was no algebra.
Yeah.
I was not bad at maths. I was very good at maths. But why?
Yeah, I agree.
So why take it? And we have to go to class and all. You can't play cards
Yeah.
all night. You have to go to class. And what's the need? So, but anyway, I mean, I had to pay a price for it later on in Delhi School of Economics. It was mathematical.
Okay.
So then,
Yeah.
but even there, I was a casual person. So, okay, fine.
Okay.
Okay, so, but in the end, after I finished my MA, I actually learned calculus from a book by Apostol. It was a very classical book, but
Okay.
it began with integral calculus. And that's
Okay.
the right way to teach calculus. all this, they did teach us in class. We didn't have class 12, we had only class 11. They did teach us derivatives and differential calculus. But it
Yeah.
made no sense to me. Say, why are we doing all this? What is it? So, but of course, you have to study, you have to get good marks. Fine. So, I'm a good student. Okay, fine. This is how you solve this problem. I'll do it. But it made no sense.
Yeah.
Then I read Apostol on my own. And then finally, I learned, okay, this is what calculus is. So,
Okay.
so I didn't take it, but as a study subject, but I was good at it. There was never a question that I wasn't good at
Yeah.
mathematics. I was good. It was not a problem for
Yeah.
me. But
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that.
college life was college life. Why waste it with
Exactly.
it either by
Yeah.
going to IIT and studying hard or going to DU, and then you have to do this, all these things in mathematics. And in our times, those optional subjects, the marks didn't even count in your degree.
Okay.
Okay, so only econ subjects, 8 papers, 800 marks. Those were the only ones that counted. The rest, they did put it on your mark sheet, but it was not
Got it.
counted for anything. So didn't do it. So I had to catch up
Yeah. Got
later
it.
on in my own, but
Yeah.
that I could catch up because I was good.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah. As you mentioned. Yeah. Yeah, like, I just wanted to know like if there's been a transition in that. So now we have like compulsory maths in our papers. So it's also good because
See, look,
economics is quantitative.
if you go back and look at the uh, what should I say, the papers, the journal
Yeah.
papers, the academic papers, they were mathematical way back. Even if you look at 1770 books, you will find
Okay.
that they were with algebra. What the Alfred Marshall, who was a professor of economics at Cambridge, he created most of the diagrams that we now see in micro.
Yeah.
So he shifted it to geometry and diagrams. And he even defined terms like elasticity and so on. So he was very creative man. But those days, they were all mathematical. They were not
Yeah.
ignorant of mathematics. They were,
Uh. Yeah.
but, and then, as you know, the teaching of economics really took off with Samuelson's book, Introduction to Economics, which he wrote in 1948.
Okay.
And that had no algebra in it.
Okay.
And for the first 10 years of the life of that book, that was the only book that was used worldwide.
Okay.
And even today, when you read any introductory textbook in economics, you can see that the basis in just a second. I have to put you on pause for a minute. I'll be back. Hang on.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I was saying is that mathematics was there in the economics profession. And in the old days, people spanned several subjects.
Yeah.
It wasn't that there was specialization. They knew many things. They were truly scholars. They knew many things. So knowing mathematics it was not like that, oh, I don't know mathematics because I'm an economist. They didn't write everything mathematically
Got.
in algebra, but they knew it all. It was not like
Yeah.
it was mathematical. And today, of course, it has become mathematical, and there's a good
Yeah.
reason for it because
Yeah.
you can be more precise. Mathematics ultimately is precision. So instead of
Exactly.
vaguely saying something, Alfred Marshall defined elasticity. Elasticity is a very precisely defined concept. You don't say, people respond in some fashion. That's talk. But you say, no, the response is measured like this. We can get.
Yeah.
So that precision is where the thinking is taking you to, right? So
Yeah.
mathematics is just a way to be precise.
I
It
get it.
is not, when I was a student at MIT, in your seminars, nobody could present the mathematics because I said, look, everybody knows mathematics. So what are you talking about? Don't please
Exactly.
put up equations. We know you know how to do equations. Tell us what it means.
Yeah,
Let's discuss economics. So mathematics is a tool. It's a very good,
yeah, it is.
it's a very good tool.
It is. Yeah, like I even experienced this with my subjects. Like I can now, like the graphs which you used to make in micro, now we have a mathematical interpretation for that. And besides that, the equations also have a nice economic interpretation. So it's like a connecting tool, and the measurement has become more easier, and it has become more precise at how much, by what degree, by what quantity is there a change if there is any. So yeah, it is indeed very helpful. But
And one
yeah,
more
so
point
that
I
was
want to make. If you don't have
yeah,
equations, you cannot do econometrics.
yeah,
So suddenly you say, no, I don't do any equations. I do only graphs. And now I have to apply these concepts in the real world. To apply those concepts, you have to have the equations that are you and the statistical tools from which together make econometrics, right?
oh,
So you certainly
yeah,
say, no, I just describe everything in words. Then you can never
that's not
deal with
possible.
numbers.
Yeah.
You can only deal with what you can call as averages. Okay, on average, this is what happens. But any sense that you have, even you can't even say, I'm going to do an econometric estimation of the elasticity of demand. Why? Because you need an equation. Right? So the real world you describe, and in a macro model, you have 1,000 equations. So you need the
Yes,
mathematics. You actually, to be applicable to the real world, you need the mathematics. It's
it's
not
true.
a wrong thing at all. It's the right way.
Yeah, yeah, it is true. And okay, and like as we were discussing about, and like so I also saw about like your profile. So you have been mainly very much academically oriented, and like throughout your life you have been into research and a lot of stuff like that. And like as a third semester student, I would call, like you are like you have so many options as of now. For example, some people get into corporate, some people get into research. Like these are the two options where I have like narrowed down to. And sometimes my mind says that research is good. It gives you opportunity to explore more. It gives you opportunity to learn more and like diversify more. Like you get a option to explore a lot of stuff, and like a lot of reading is there. And somewhere you feel like it's a very good career option. But then you also somewhere feel that in the corporate world, you're making a kind of real difference. For example, you are the one, for example, in the FMCG sector, you're making a real product which is solving someone's problem. Or in, like, for example, you're making something which is solving something in real life. But at the same time, I believe that research is also very important when it comes to making theories and like also making very realistic theories, because it was Keynesian theory which helped in the 1930s for the government to realize that, okay, what was wrong. Then later on, various theories came in which just proved some different points. And so it just makes us believe that, okay, research is also very important. So how did you choose the career path for yourself?
Okay. It's
And you
very,
decided to go for a
there were no corporate jobs at that time. Hardly any.
okay,
Okay. They were hard. See, you have to understand that the choices were very few. There was hardly any corporate jobs at that time. Okay. And they
yeah,
were, and so people in Delhi really were not looking for corporate jobs.
all right,
It was more, the Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Kolkata, those places had some corporate jobs. Delhi had no corporate jobs, hardly any. And
all right,
the possibility of corporate jobs was very, very limited. And
all
so there was not, and given my family background and the people I knew, no one really took a corporate job, even in our college, in my class. I can't think of a
okay,
single person from BA Econ who took a corporate job because there really weren't any. Okay, so that was out. Though the jobs that were open were really government, which was UPSC,
got it.
or teaching. Those were two real options at that time. And you could do, if you were a lawyer, you could have that job, of course. But once you are in BA Econ, then there were jobs in banks, like
Yeah.
State Bank of India and various other banks. So those banks were there by that time. SBI was always government owned, but the other banks were also nationalized. But you could get a job in a bank. whether it was a foreign bank or an Indian bank. There were very few foreign banks at that time, but they were there. And you could
Yeah.
get a job in a bank, you could get a job in the government, you could get a research. There were hardly any think tanks. So you
Okay.
can't say, I will go to a policy think tank. There weren't any. There was one or two. But it was not a great option. But yes, you could have in that one or two. I think the only one at that time was NCAER. There's only
All
one in
right.
Delhi that was of any prominence. And people were thinking of setting up something, but there was no option of startups because there was no money for it.
Okay.
So at that time, the opportunities were few. And for me, there were only two opportunities, realistically. One was either you become an economist, which meant to me that I had to get a PhD from a good university,
Yeah.
or you try for UPSC.
Yeah.
And some people became journalists, and I used to think I'm a good writer, but I was too scared to believe myself and say, listen,
Okay.
I need a safer option. How can I
All
be a
right.
journalist? I can't be sure. So that was a third option, but really there were only two options, UPSC or PhD
Economics.
from a top university.
Yeah.
And when I got admission to a good university, that was the end of the discussion.
Okay.
So it was not like today, where too many choices, too many options, too many things. We had no
Yeah.
options. Okay? There's just no way to
Got it.
even think about too many things. And we couldn't even, it's hard to believe, but we couldn't even apply to many universities abroad. First of all, there was no way to pay the application fee. So you had to write a letter to them saying, please allow me to not pay the application fee. If they agreed,
All
then you
right.
could apply. But everything was sent by posts, and it was expensive to send
Yeah.
all those big envelopes. And you couldn't say, well, I'm going to apply to 15 universities because you didn't have the money to pay the postage.
Okay.
So you said, okay, I'll choose 5 or 6 universities. Let's see where my luck is. I'll apply. If I get in, good. If I don't, what can I do about it? I'll try UPSC. So life was different, but there was much less competition. Much less competition. So along with the limited resources, there was limited competition.
All right.
So people all did well because they were brought up well, they were educated well, and there, as I said, there wasn't that much competition.
All right.
So none of us was
Okay.
stressed out. Let me tell you this. Today,
Okay.
everybody is stressed out, but most people were truly not stressed out because there's
Okay.
something will happen. Okay, don't worry. Nobody. It was not a hot topic.
Okay. Got it. So apart from that, like as I saw that you completed your PhD in the 1970s, I guess. So and like you were an economist before the liberalization, privatization, and globalization policy of 1991 was implemented. So I have always read about that policy, like in my economics, like it was the basics of the Indian economics which you have read as of now in school and in college as of now. So like what were your observation as an economist at that point of time? And what do you think? Like, because I have always had an experience of what the writer has written, and I have not been able to make my own observations because first of all, I was not aware of the economics which was happening at that time. And secondly, I believe that I have been taught what has been written basically about by the people who chose to write what they did. But you being an economist at that time, and as you mentioned that there were very less opportunities earlier, like when you graduated at that time, right? So you must did you see any creation of new opportunities at that time, and like how did it actually impact the country, and what happened
Well, it
in general, like
was.
your key
The
observations?
thing is that the economy was very stagnant. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The big thing that happened, and it is really one of the biggest things which people forget, is that India went from being a food short country, which was begging for food. We were literally begging for food. Okay. And we went from being a food short country to being a food okay country to a food surplus country.
Okay.
Okay. In 1965, 66, uh, we had to wait for a ship with wheat to come from USA.
Yeah.
We were food short. And Prime Minister Shastri said, please don't eat grains Monday night. There isn't enough grain in the country. So we were
Okay.
food short. And people were, let us say, low life expectancy, stunted, low growth, all those things. We didn't even have enough sugar. So sugar was in short supply. People, couldn't give you tea with sugar because sugar. So it was a very different world, let us put it this way. We were food short. And then, but we had avoided all the famines that used to happen in India because now you couldn't avoid those because of democracy, as Amartya Sen has written so eloquently, that people
Okay.
were voting, and if you didn't give them food, they would vote you out of office. So even if the country was short, you made sure that nobody was dying in famines, right? So the
Yeah.
people were empowered. And then the so-called Green Revolution, where wheat and rice production increased today, that made India no longer food short. We were no longer, we could pay for the food. We were not even actually after 10 years of the Green Revolution, which was a foreign technology brought through the government. We were not food short. Yes, people had no income, they couldn't afford, but overall, there was no physical shortage. Today, also, we have a distribution problem that some people
Yeah.
can't afford. But the production in today is we are exporting rice. And so we are not food short. But there we were not exporting, but we had enough. We were not saying that one more, two more ships of free food is coming, and that's how we will manage this year because the crop has been bad. Crop good, crop bad. We had built the storage systems which were not working very well, but still we had some storage. Okay. So that was the biggest change, that we went from being a poor food short country to being a not so poor food okay country. But
Okay.
beyond that, we didn't really, we built nuclear power, atom bombs, and so on. So we had the scientific achievements and we had built the institutions like IITs, IIMs, Delhi School of Economics, and other places. But there were no real good jobs of the type that you have
Okay.
today. And the economy was very stagnant. I'll tell you in brief, after I finished my MA, I went back to Jaipur to teach because I wanted to have 1 year in Jaipur, my hometown.
Okay.
And the head of department from there was the man who coined the term Hindu growth rate, Professor Raj Krishna. Very
Okay.
smart guy, very hard. He later on became a member of the Planning Commission also. So he was an
Okay.
advisor to the government of UP. Okay, so he
Okay.
went there to Lucknow and came back, and I asked him, sir, what is your report? Because he was a friendly guy, you could talk to him. I said, sir,
Yeah.
what did you say? He says, sir, सुबोध क्या बताऊं, जो मक्खी वहां पहले बैठी थी वो भी नहीं हिली है. वहां तो मक्खियां भी, nothing happens. So we were
Okay.
stagnant. We were
Okay.
stagnant. But the roots, the foundation was being built. The teaching of computers, which we are now which came out in the year, Infosys was started in 1985. So
Yeah.
the academic roots and foundations had been built, but the house
Okay.
was not there. There was nothing. There were all these problems of food uh, shortages, but not of famines, and then inflation, and it was really no clear plan or progress in economic terms. And actually, in the time of 1990, the economy was flat broke. For the first time, we were out of dollars because there was
Yeah.
really nothing happening. We were just dead broke. And so we had to take the IMF loan, which we had never, I think we had taken some minor IMF loan, but they put the conditions which were not
Yeah.
easy to implement, but we did it. And we learned from it, and since then we have built up enough foreign exchange, we have enough dollars. The Reserve Bank of India and the government have done a great job since 1991. Today, I think what we have 600, $500 billion, it's more than enough. And
Yeah.
so you could see the vibrancy at that time. You could see it and feel it and observe it. Uh, and every time, like I used to live in this, in the 1980s, every time you went back to India, it was the same, no change. But after that, you went back to India and things were different.
Right.
You started getting better things, better food, better service, better everything. And you could actually feel it, that things are really, instead of just macroeconomic data, you could actually see it and feel it. That something, but of course, we were still, in the rural areas, we were desperately lacking,
Yeah.
desperately lacking. Okay, there was no electricity connection for most of the people in the rural areas, no piped water supply at that time. And the reforms didn't really do anything about it.
Okay.
Okay, because even the power companies were very badly run, most of them, and they didn't really have any money to serve the rural areas. And there was nothing in the reforms about it. So these subsidies were added later on when the government had more money, and in the budget, they could then subsidize all these things that are now flowing into the villages. And still, we are not doing a good job. We have failed really to create good working conditions in villages, but it was much better, and you could feel it and you could see it. You could see that things, life was better every time you went back to India. It's economic.
Okay.
You could actually feel it, and you could see the exchange rate working quite well. Uh, the analysis was very clear that, and since then, no government has really gone back on it.
All right.
So nobody, we have had two BJP rules, Atal Bihari Vajpayee and then Narendra Modi. But basically, the 1991 reforms remain untouched. There are some dents here and there, but they
Yeah.
basically remain untouched. There's no controversy about it. Nobody,
Yeah.
people just want to say, should we give credit to Narasimha Rao or to Manmohan Singh? Say, okay, fine, you can debate that. But really, there's no change in that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what really was that we didn't hit the heights that China did. By the time you came around
Yeah.
to the year 2000, perhaps you were just born at that time,
Yeah.
China was so far ahead of India, so far ahead of India that it was sickening. Because in the 10 years from 1985 to 1995, and then in the next 10 years from 1995 to 2005, those 20 years, they really shot up, shot up, shot up, shot up, shot up, 8% annual GDP growth rate. And it was sickening to see that happen. And even today, I keep writing that we should stop thinking about Pakistan. We should really think about China. That is our real problem. But people just cannot get their head around the fact that India's competition is not with small countries like Pakistan, which is a economically failed state anyway, but is with China.
Indeed.
And we are
Indeed.
not, there are grandiose statements made, okay, we're going to catch up with China in 5 years, 10 years. It's not going to happen. They're so far ahead that we don't even teach what's happening in China in our courses.
Yeah.
It's a wake-up call to young people and to you, to all of you young people. Take a look at China. And don't
All
say that
right.
their figures lie. Yes, they do. But it's not like the case that our figures don't lie. They do. But just take a look. I mean, we're talking about Vande Bharat. Okay, Vande Bharat is 180 kilometers per hour max, actually running at 120. and we have them only some 11 or 10 trains. Oh. China has been running from Beijing to Lhasa in Tibet, up there, 400
Mm.
kilometers an hour for 10 years. Huge long
Okay.
distance.
Yeah.
And they're giving loans to Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh.
Yeah.
We can't even afford to we've given a small loan to Maldives, which was
Yeah.
having a fight with us. So finally, when they are in trouble, we gave them $500 million. Okay. 1 year loan to, but China gives billions of dollars.
Yeah.
So they are encircling India by giving loans to
Exactly.
China, Sri Lanka, to Pakistan, Sri Lanka, possibly to Bangladesh now that Sheikh Hasina is out, and Nepal.
Yeah.
So they are all around us.
Exactly.
We need to focus on economic growth.
We do.
And I am, 3 years ago, I wrote a book, India 2047, that was
Mm-hmm.
mainly focused on removing the constraints to growth.
Yeah.
Now, after that, I have written a set of goals, which are my goals, non-official development goals for India 2047. There are some 10
Mm.
goals and 25 sub-goals, so that
Okay.
we know what is the detailed, what plan that we want to achieve. And then I will merge those goals with my old book, and I will have a new book out by April or so of next year, which will be
Okay.
my manifesto for India 2047, an economist's manifesto for India
Okay.
2047, so that young people like you have something which you can agree or disagree, that look, this is the way India in economic terms has to be heading to 2047, right? And
Especially for the book, and I'm excited to read it. So yeah.
because the politicians, they are actually focused on winning the next elections.
Exactly. That
Exactly.
is true.
They
Yeah.
talk of 2047, but how many of those top politicians are going to be around in 2047? None. None. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe they
Right.
are 5 years, 10 years, and even if they are alive in 2047, they will not be in power.
Yeah.
So
They
their
won't be.
horizon is just on the next election. I want your horizon to be on 2047,
Yeah.
and to say these are the goals, this is how we achieve the goals. You can
Yeah. Like
disagree
a
with,
strategic.
yeah,
Yeah. Like a proper strategic plan to achieve the goals and like step by step process of how you do that.
yeah, and I won't say that I'm right. I will say that I want to start the focus and the debate.
Yeah.
It's very urgently needed,
It is
because I'll
indeed.
ask you one question. You've asked me many. You know what is Narega, the Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme?
Yeah. NG and Rega. Yeah.
MG Narega. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Now they give what, 100 days of work a year?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now look at the children born today to a Narega, MG Narega family. How will they become prosperous or well off by 2047? That's my question to you. Are they going to have good health, good food, good
Mm.
education? What are they going to have so that we can say everybody in India is reasonably well off? What about these children?
We need to focus on the future.
But there, nobody's focused on them, or the children of landless labor.
Yeah.
They are in lousy schools. They are 30% of children are stunted. The health facilities are lacking in those small villages. And then we say, oh, these people, they should become entrepreneurs. What entrepreneur? They don't have enough food to eat.
Mm.
What entrepreneurship can they do? So we need to focus on the reality. And one of my goals is equality of opportunity. We don't have
Yeah.
equality of opportunity. Anyway, let me stop talking. It's time for you
All
to,
right.
you got me going. All right. Anyway,
Oh, no,
let me
it's
stop.
fine, sir. I enjoyed you listening. It's completely fine. I like it. So yeah, like one of the okay, so as you see, like India, like I believe we have seen a lot of changes in the economy like throughout, like since independence. Then we like obviously post 1991, we moved towards a more capitalist kind of economy with more freer markets and a lot of freedom being given to the private sector and enterprises over time. And right now, I believe this is something which has been taking place for like which has been happening for quite some time, and government is somewhere like decrease like disinvestment has been quite high, and the role of government has been quite diminishing in terms of the business sector, and more private players are being encouraged. So at that so and like this is a kind of cap like I can say somewhere that India is moving towards a capitalist economy. And and so you've also like you have been a student over here and you have observed India through all the changes. Besides that, you have also studied and like researched in at the US, and US was at very core a capitalist economy with the free markets always booming. So how do you like compare these economies, and how what kind of changes and like differences you see when you compare these economies? Like like one obviously being that of being developed and developing, but besides that, like what
Yeah,
yeah, like as a
I,
student as well as a resident, I would
I
ask.
want to
Yeah.
talk about it from a very narrow perspective because otherwise you get lost in the debate. That
Yeah.
if you look at the financial sector, India's financial sector is much less developed than the US financial sector. In fact, in my book, the main job that I assign to the union government is to work with the RBI to develop the financial sector. To and what does it mean to develop the financial sector? It means debt and equity should be available to all those entrepreneurs across the board. Of course, not free, not at low interest, with conditions. But
Yeah.
if you are a smart person in a small town, you should have access to debt, loans, and equity. If you want to
Yeah.
have a startup and you want to sell shares in it, you should be able to. Now, of course, it's not like subsidized, no, non-subsidized. And we don't have a system of moving our savings into investment, of course, with risk. So somebody has to take the risk. We don't have that system. We try to
Yeah.
say, oh, government will give loans to these people, but that's not a system. My one and first thing to the union government, as I call it, central government, is that the RBI has been very negligent in developing India's financial sector.
Yeah.
And what we get instead is great thrills that we are making digital payments. Okay, fine. The same sabzi wala you are dealing with, the same sabzis you are buying, you are paying digitally instead of cash. What is it? There's no GDP increase here. There is no employment increase here. There's no quality increase here. It's just convenience, right? The money goes into his account directly.
Yeah.
It's good. I'm not saying it's bad, but
Yeah, it is good. It is good indeed.
it doesn't add to the economy.
Yeah, it's just been changed from one way to the other. And but somewhere I believe that when you are talking about the financial development, this digitalization of small payments has led to more formalization of the economy, like somewhere or the other, because when bank accounts come into picture, the formalization of the economy occurs, and somewhere I believe it is leading to the foundation of the development of the financial industry in the country. So
I'm
like
not
the base is being
I'm not satisfied with people who say, "Oh, we are laying the foundations now." I want a house.
okay. Yeah, we don't have the house for
No,
sure, but
no.
some but
This
would you
is
agree
this
with the
is
same?
no. There's no. I have no patience left. If you say, "Oh, we are
Okay.
doing it," it will happen. I say, "Stop." The time has come to hit sixes and fours, not score
Yeah.
singles. You know, we can't say, "Oh, it is formalizing the sector. They now go into a bank account." Say, can this guy get a loan? Can this sabziwala get a loan? from the bank or from somebody else? Can they get equity infusion? And if you say, oh, that's not happening right now, it's just that it is formal sector, I say, I'm tired of it. I cannot have this slow growth. Speed it up.
Okay.
Speed it up.
Got
Okay. Just say, all right, fine. All the sabziwalas are now getting digital payments. Next year, we will make sure that there is a financial sector development that allows, because banking is just a way of conducting transactions.
Yeah.
So you conduct your transaction. And fine, digital is good and not bad. But digital doesn't add to anything. Make it formal, and formal means what? Growth rate will go up? No, nothing. You say, okay, it's now registered with the government. Okay, there's a bank account, there's the owner and all that. All that is done, right? But it's like setting the stage for the play. There are no actors,
Yeah.
right? Oh, the props have been set up on the stage, right? Or the set has been set ready for the stars to come and make a movie. So we have put one elephant here, we have put some other things there, and all the stage is ready. I'm very happy. I said, no, let the play start.
All right.
Start the action. Get
Got
moving.
it.
China was growing at 10% GDP. We don't even think about it. 10 years. That's why they are so far ahead. And if we are saying, oh, we are setting the stage, we are hoping that progress will come in the future, you will never catch up.
Got it.
So please don't be satisfied with people saying it's a good start. And say, forget it. I want we are not playing test cricket anymore. We are playing
Yeah.
T20, right? Don't tell me that this was a maiden over. This is out. Today we need to be hitting fours and sixes. And young people should be motivated to not bring about incremental change, big
Okay.
change,
Got it.
not incremental. India doesn't needs incremental change. Yes, we need incremental change. We also need big change, and that is not there. The big
Yeah.
change. We are hitting 6.5% GDP growth. It's very good, but that is not big change. We need to be 9-10%. Otherwise, we are just lying
Yeah.
through our teeth by saying we'll be 20 trillion economy, will be third. If you calculate the growth rates, they are implicitly 14-15% annual GDP growth rates, which we are nowhere near.
Yeah.
So don't accept anything that says, today I'm building the foundations and see, look, there is my foundation I have built. Say, no, I don't want to see the foundations. Build a house.
All right.
Build the house. Now, don't tell me it will eventually happen. Eventually, our trains will reach this level. Say, why eventually? What's stopping us?
Mm.
Who is stopping us? What is stopping us? So that's the question that I want to tell young people, that why are we not hitting 10%? Why are we not creating enough jobs? Every day you read 1,000 jobs and the 20,000 people apply. What about those other 19,000? What are they going to do? So we get FDI. FDI goes only to a few cities in a few states. What about the
Yeah.
other cities in the other states? So we can't use FDI. So anyway, what I'm saying is that don't settle for slow change. Raj Krishna
Yeah.
was right in calling it the Hindu growth rate. Today, the Hindu growth rate should be 10%,
Got it.
right? 10%. Less than that, if you are going to hit 7% for 7 years and then slump, you are not going to be a well-off country. You are not creating enough jobs. People go and see the situation in Dhobi Ghat in Mumbai. Go and see the worker situation there. Poor fellows, they're living in misery and yet sending money home because the village situation is even worse than that. Go and talk to the people in the slums and see how they're suffering, and yet 20% of their money they are sending to their families in villages, because in the villages they don't even have that. That's the second part of the reality, apart from the big reality for well-off people. Fine, you can use your phone, you can get wonderful things delivered in 15 minutes nowhere else in the world. Yes, it's fantastic. You go to India and you say, hey, it's 10 o'clock at night. Maybe I'll eat some gulab jamun. Oh, 10 minutes later, the fellow brings you gulab jamun. Fine, it's great. What's wonderful. But there are people living on the street just outside. And there are people in the villages who have no idea. So anyway, enough of talk from me. Sorry, you asked me to
Yeah,
talk.
no, yeah, no, so I love your insights. It's completely fine. And so, like, I would like to end with the last question, maybe. So, like, last question. So the thing is, like, as you see, like, you did your bachelor's in arts, right, in economics, in the from some institutions at that time. So, like, you see, like, generally at that time, I believe, like, as it is even right now, the traditional path which you are asked to opt for is basically either you go for medical or you go for engineering. So at that time, like, was it for you as well, like that you saw among your classmates something? That this was a trend which you saw. Like, this is just a simple question. So yeah,
No, it's a very
like, and
simple
you're
question. That it was the same situation as it is now. There
all
was
right.
a lot of pressure to be an engineer or a doctor. Lot of
Yeah,
pressure. And it was very hard to escape that pressure.
yeah,
But I mean, in my family, from my mother's side, it was engineers and doctors only. But my father had an MA in history, and my siblings and all, there was no real pressure. But the school was very keen that I should apply
yeah,
to IIT because, I was a
yeah,
student in my school, that maybe one student will get into IIT, school will get some prominence also.
yeah.
So they were very, because I did PCM in high school, and they were very
Okay.
keen that there was no option. You could only do PCB to become a doctor, PCM to
Yeah.
become an engineer, and if you were a real loser, you could take some arts subjects. So that was there. But in my family, there were enough people in arts, real losers. They were not losers, but
Okay.
it was okay. So
Yeah.
for me, choosing economics was not a decision that came with parental disapproval.
All
We
right.
knew
Yeah.
what is economics, and minor things happen. President Kennedy's wife, Jacqueline Kennedy, she came to visit Jaipur where I was a student in, I think, 1962 or 63, early 63,
All right.
1963. And at that time, the US ambassador to India was Professor Galbraith from Harvard.
Okay.
Okay, so obviously, if she's coming to Jaipur, he has to come to Jaipur. And if he's going to
Okay.
come to Jaipur, then obviously he's going to give a talk in the economics department, right? So the whole town was full. Oh, Harvard professor in economics has come to give a talk here. And of course, Mrs.
Okay.
Kennedy has come, but he's a professor at Harvard and he's come to give a talk here. So even though we were in high school, nothing much used to happen in that town, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Suddenly, the first
Yeah.
wife of the president is here. She's going to ride on that elephant. This Harvard professor is going to give a talk. The papers are full of it. Everybody's talking about it. So oh, there's economics. There's a professor from
Yeah.
Harvard. He has come to give a talk. You don't know what the talk is about because you are just school children. But it
Yeah.
was there that look, and he agreed to give a talk at the economics department. Raj Krishna was not a professor at that time there, but
Okay.
he said, what, I'm going to Jaipur, there's an economics department. I'll give a talk.
Yeah.
So
So that was an exposure to economics.
that was a real exposure to a real economist. Of course, we didn't go to the meeting. Nobody would let us go. But,
Yeah.
it's in the papers that, look, there's
Yeah. So you got to know.
you got to know that there's a Harvard professor of economics. It's a big deal. You can become ambassador to India. You can do great things. Suddenly, it opens the idea in your mind that you are
Yeah.
not sitting in
Right.
a small town cut away from the rest of the world, that indeed there is an economics department here where the professors are good enough to be able to tell a Harvard professor that please come and give a talk.
Wow.
So that was the first real exposure. Though we
Okay.
didn't go to the talk, obviously we couldn't understand a word of what
Yeah.
he was going to say, but
Yeah.
it was exposure.
Yeah. Like you got to know about the subject and you got
Yeah.
to know, okay, this kind of field also exists and I can get into this. Like quite similarly, it happened with me as well. Like when I was in my high school, like not a very famous prominent person coming to a city to give the talk, but rather, it happened that I was choosing my subjects. I was very much clear that I will take humanities, like the art subject. And my parents were supportive, but somewhere in their mind, they were like, all right, like you were a good student till class 10, so you should have opted for science or something like that. But they're supportive in my decision, and that's all what mattered. So, yeah. And I chose economics because I didn't like the other subjects which were being offered at that time in that option, and I ended up liking it so much in class 12 that now I'm doing my bachelor's in that. So yeah,
Okay.
that's
Well,
how just things,
okay,
yeah,
Lakhi,
that's how just things stand.
we have had a good time. I'm sorry I've talked so much, but
No,
it's really
that's
supposed
fine.
to be your turn. But I think we can end it here now. And
Yeah, so sure.
it's wonderful to be able to talk to young people. So let's say bye to everybody. I'll be back with
Yeah.
another young person or an expert soon. Bye till then. Bye, everybody.